we're going to be focusing on KPIs. So there are 4 different types of KPIs you can track within a line. The first one we're going to be talking about is your critical numbers. So we like to think of these critical numbers as your vital signs. As a company, we are tracking your strategic growth. So if you are focusing on 50 different numbers, you're not really going to be actually focusing on anything, right? What are the top 5 metrics that are going to make sure that your team is on track to hit the goals that you've set out for yourself? That's what these critical numbers are going to be. So you'll notice that I have critical numbers for my leadership team on my personal dashboard. If I go to my company dashboard, I have my critical numbers for my company, my Sandbox Inc., which is the name of my company as a whole. So I have the ability to have up to 5 critical numbers for each team in a line. So I have them for my entire company, as well as each huddle that is created in a line. Again, these are the top 5 most important numbers you need to be measuring. These are going to be held accountable by everyone, that everyone needs to know where we are. This is kind of the pulse of where we are and how we're tracking to hit our goals by the end of the time period we've set out. So in your dashboard, you can host your critical numbers by clicking to edit your company or your My Dashboard, just clicking this edit button and making sure that that critical number component is added to your dashboard. If this is not here and you don't see it, you can click the drop down and it should appear here to give you the opportunity to add it to your dashboard. I have mine stacked at the top just because my critical numbers are the first thing that I want to see when my company logs in. So if you have a brand new account, you will see a button that says add critical numbers. It's just going to be a nice button right here in the middle. Since I already have critical numbers created, I'm going to click this pencil icon in the top right corner of my critical numbers section. And this will bring up an edit drawer for all of my critical numbers. Again, you really need to make sure that you're talking with your team about what are the top 5 numbers. So everybody needs to be in agreement that these are the most critical, the most important numbers for us to track. Again, we're going to go over all of the other ways that you can track KPIs within a line, but these are going to be those vital signs, the most important.
Yo,
So we've got,
Carly, can I jump in?
of course.
I was talking with a client a couple of weeks ago, and she actually had like a really great analogy. If you and your leadership team were suddenly transported to a desert island, and you could only receive one piece of paper each day with 5 metrics on it, to understand how healthy your business was each day, what would those 5 numbers be? That's your critical number set.
That is a fantastic analogy. I love that. We should definitely give credit to whoever created that for you. um, so in your critical numbers, you can have up to 5. We do limit to 5 to make sure, again, that you are focusing on the right data. Is this information that is going to give you leading indicators to where you're going rather than showing you where you've been? So you'll notice that I have my new leads, I've got referrals, new customers, revenue this quarter, and then this is just a test number that I've already created. So I'm going to make this test number a little easier. So I'm just going to say I need to sell 400 items. I could have 300 items and that would be fine. If I sell 200, that's a little bit low, and 100 is in the red. We're critical. We need to kick ourselves into high gear. Now you'll notice there's 2 different ways you can measure progress for this number. You have custom targets, which is allowing yourself to choose those color values. So the threshold for red is if I'm under 100, I'm going to be in the red. If I'm under 200, I'm going to be in the yellow. If I'm under 300, I'll be in the green. If I'm under 400, I'll be in the dark green. So these are the thresholds you're choosing for your company. Let's say I'm currently at 250. That's going to put me right in the yellow range between 200 and 300. If I would like to, I also have the ability to make this a time-based critical number. So I'm going to scroll up here and show you my new customers is already a time-based critical number. This is going to take the target value that you'd like to hit, your current value that you're at the moment, and it's going to compare it to the time you have left in the time period you've set out in your one-page plan. So I'm going to click save and show you the difference between these 2 visualizations. You'll notice that my test has these nice large color blocks showing me where I'm trying to get, and giving me those delineations based off of my custom targets that I've chosen. Whereas my new customers is a time-based critical number. This shows where I currently am and is comparing the time I have in my time period up here. So I'm about 2/3 of the way done, and I'm roughly 3/5 of the way through. So I'm in the yellow. I'm okay right now. As this time period ticks down and I have less time to achieve the rest of the target I've set out, this red swath and this green swath will get larger or smaller depending on the amount of time I have left to make up the rest of the target that I have set out. So if I'm still at 30 and I only have 3 days left in the system, this red swath is going to be a lot larger because I don't have the time available to make up the rest of that target. You'll notice that you have the ability to see some of the details. If I just hover over the name of my critical number, it'll show me the name, it'll show me that it is a time-based critical number, and it will give me those vital stats. It also shows that this was last updated. So it has a change of 7.1% since it was last updated. And it was updated 3 days ago, making sure that you understand when this information came and if this is the most recent, or if we need to, if I updated this 3 days ago, I might need to come in and update this again. I might need to go look at that data and make sure it's accurate. The great thing about critical numbers is that all of these updates are historically stored. So if I click on my graph, it's going to show me the current time period that I have. So from the first day of my time period to the last day of my time period, here are all of the data points that have been entered. So I can go back and look, okay, on March 14th, we were at 12, and now we're at 30. So we've gotten a lot of work done and steadily increased over this time period. Let's say on March 21st, I completely forgot to update. I know that I had an update in there. I was at, let's say, 11. I can go and I can add a past update. I can say the date. So this is going to be March 21st. And my value was 11 on March 21st. So now when I click back into that graph, I have an update for that day. So if you miss a day, you need to make sure that that is historically cataloged. You can come in and add a past update using this past update in this graph. Are there any questions regarding your critical numbers? Yes, Jamie.
I'm trying to figure out what I have a custom target, and I'm trying to figure out what the difference is between the two greens because the graphs I'm producing is not it's not showing. My current number target number should be in the yellow, but it's still in the red at the very bottom.
So do you have a value in every single one of your custom targets?
Yes.
And the value that you have in your current, so I'm going to click to edit this. So you have a value in all 4 of these targets, and your
Yes.
current value should be between the red and the yellow. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not showing you the correct color value?
No.
So what values do you have in your targets?
I have 495 at the red.
And then what's your yellow?
991 in the yellow.
And then what's your green?
1487 in the green.
And then what about dark green?
1983 in the dark green.
And then what's your current value?
526.
So that is showing you that you are in the red for today. That is interesting. Tom, do you have any insight on that?
You pull up the edit drawer one more time?
Yeah.
So Jamie, what color are you expecting it to show up as right now?
Yellow.
Gotcha. So bear in mind that 991 is the minimum threshold for what is going to be yellow. 991 and above is going to be yellow. Anything below that is going to be in the red. That 495 is sort of a misnomer there in that anything below, 990.99999 is going to still show up as red. So if in reality you want everything below 495 to show up as red and everything above that to show up as yellow, you'll need to adjust those targets accordingly. Does that make sense?
Okay, so, and then that way, would the light green be the target value or the dark green be the target value?
Either one. Typically speaking, it depends company to company. The way that we typically describe it is that light green is going to be just, the target. We need to hit this, and that is the target we're working to hit. That super green target, as we refer to it, is oftentimes a what's the word I'm looking for? Stretch goal that you're looking to accomplish, something to really push yourselves to accomplish.
Okay. Okay, I'll readjust it that way then. I thought the red was the lower band of the high band of the lowest number. Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And then we'll put this as 1200. So now,
No, I guess I have to change the red to 0.
Yeah, I think it's red to 0. You just swapped it and went the other way.
sorry about
And
that.
then okay.
Thank you, Alexander. Thank you, Tom. Great questions. What other questions do we have on critical numbers? All right, before we move on, I'm going to briefly touch on team critical numbers. So you'll notice that this is for my entire company. As you create huddle groups in the system, so I have a few daily huddles and a few other monthly or weekly huddles that I have already created. If I'd like to track a specific group of numbers for that team, it may be that I have a sales team or a marketing team that needs to track a few other numbers that are very critical to their specific group, but may not be necessary for everyone in the company to be tracking. I can click Manage Teams under my nice little arrow. And this is going to show me all of the sets of critical numbers I have created in the system. So I have a set of numbers for my leadership team. I have one for my one-on-one with Mark, and I have one for my sales team. So if I'd like to, I can create a set of critical numbers here. I can also make them private to teams so that only users in that huddle have access to those numbers. So I'm going to toggle down and I'm going to click on my sales numbers. So I've got 3 critical numbers for my sales team. Those numbers will pull up. I can add them to my dashboard. I can also add them into my huddles. So if I have my sales huddle, I can go into my sales huddle. And you'll see that I've got my company critical numbers as well as my critical numbers for this specific group. If you don't see these in your huddle settings already, you can click on the huddle settings page, scroll to your team configuration, and make sure that your company and your team critical numbers are toggled on. That'll give you the opportunity to see and edit both of those in your huddle landing page. Now, the functionality of team critical numbers is exactly the same as your company critical numbers. It's just 2 different sets of numbers hosted, one for that specific huddle and one for the company as a whole. Any other questions regarding critical numbers? Awesome. I'm going to come back to my dashboard, and I am going to cover one more of our KPI opportunities before I hand it over to Tom. Tom will then cover our other 2, and then we'll talk about KPI cards. So our next opportunity is going to be KPI priorities. Your priorities are going to be time bound. So again, you've got this nice time period at the top of your page. That time period is delineated under your strategy tab and your 1-page strategic plan. So at the moment, I'm going off of a quarter. It started on the 24th of February and is going until the 25th of May. And in my priorities page, you'll see that's the same time period I'm working off for these priorities. So we like to define priorities as ways that you are working actively towards your larger goals. So in this quarter, what is a priority that I need to get done to make myself in that next phase for my annual goals that lead into my 3 to 5 year goals that lead into my big hairy goal? Excuse me. So these priorities are helping me get to those larger goals that we've set out for our team. You'll notice that I have company priorities. I also have priorities that can be owned by individuals as well. You have 3 different types of priorities, one of which can be measured as a KPI. So I have this 525 sales qualified marketing leads. This is a KPI priority, which means that I am targeting over this next quarter to hit 525 sales qualified marketing leads. And I'm measuring my target, I'm measuring where I started, and I'm measuring my current value. This allows me to have a visualization in this progress bar that shows me how far along I am to completing that within the time period we've set out. So if you have, let's say there's a project you're working on, there is a priority that you're really focused on this quarter, and it needs to have a KPI attached to it, this is where you're going to house that. So I can click add priority. I'm going to put test. Every priority has to have an owner. That is the person who's responsible for making sure that they are updated, accurate, that this is getting consistently worked on and it's not getting fallen by the wayside. Then you're going to scroll to your priority type. This is where you're going to choose how you're calculating progress on this priority. Is this a KPI that you're looking to achieve? So I want to hit 100 and I'm currently at 40. Pardon me. Or you can have a list of tasks. So that gives you the opportunity to have a task list. I've got 5 tasks. I've completed 3 of them. I'm 3/5 the way done. We have discussed roll-up priorities in another office hours. So if you have questions, we can address that. But mainly we're going to talk about the KPI priority today. So I have a target of 100. I am currently at 40. When I click save, it's going to show me as 40% complete. Now, because my time period, I am over 50% complete in my time period, it's going to show me in the red, right? Because I am not on par for the time I've set out for myself. I'm not tracking to make the progress I need to hit 100% by the end of this time period. Any questions on how to create a KPI priority? Any of the questions on the functionality or why we choose to utilize a KPI priority? So I'm going to touch briefly on how I can make this more visible. So I've got my priority here. I am the owner. It's something that I am working on. I have not made this private to anyone. So you can come into my priorities page as a member of my team. You can see this priority. You can see the progress that's been made on it. Now, let's say this is very important to a team or this is very important to the company. On my company dashboard, I have a list of KPIs that are important to my company. These may be in addition to my critical numbers. So in my company dashboard, I can click edit and I can add a KPI section. If you don't see this KPI section, again, you can click the drop down and you can add a section of KPIs. This is really great because you can add as many KPI sections as you need. So if I want a KPI section to track my marketing KPIs, my sales KPIs, my customer success KPIs, I can have a different section of numbers for each of those specific divisions. If I create a new KPI card, I can scroll to that KPI card. I can click to add KPIs. And now it's going to show me all of the different KPIs, whether they are a priority, a critical number, a quarterly action, or a metric. These are going to show all of the numbers that are already being tracked in the system. So I'm going to filter by priorities since I just created that test. And I'm going to add my test priority to a KPI card on my dashboard. You're also able to add these KPI cards to your huddles. So this is the same functionality, just in 2 separate locations. And now on my company dashboard, I have displayed that priority, making it very visible to everyone else on my team. Any questions about priorities, how I get them on my dashboard, KPI priorities in general, before I hand it over to Tom? Awesome. We have 2 more types of KPIs in a line, and Tom, I'm going to let you take it away.
Excellent. I'm going to steal the screen share. Okay, I think that worked. So I'm going to be talking first about quarterly actions, which y'all is my favorite section of the software. I love the quarterly action section, mostly because I think folks underutilize it. Folks don't find it, they don't use it as much as they should, or at least I think. I think it has a lot of utility. And I'm curious if I can get, please just use the that little raise hand function or a thumbs up in Zoom if you currently own priorities in your own Align account. Take 10 seconds and just let me know. Okay, Alexander, thank you, thank you. Got a couple other folks here raising their hand. I love it. Cool, cool. All right, so people, obviously, it's one of our most popular features, and folks clearly are owning some priorities in software. What tends to happen is I think a lot of folks will overload their priorities page. Your priorities should represent growth and change. What are you doing differently this quarter to hit your ambitious quarterly targets? So let me jump into the one-page strategic plan. And to find quarterly actions, I'm going to navigate to the quarterly section. And I could scroll all the way there, but I always like to show this quick little hack. We can collapse all sections of this one-page plan and jump right to quarterly actions. So quarterly actions, here are some quantifiable goals that we're working on this quarter. And this should look actually pretty familiar if you use the one-page plan. If we hop into this one-year section, here's our quantifiable one-year goals. Hey, what are we trying to accomplish? This says 2023, but really we could say, this says 2024, but we could say 2023. By December 31st, 2023, what do we want our annual revenue to look like? What do we want our profit margin to look like? Revenue per employee. We can set ourselves some ambitious quantifiable goals. And we can further break those down into some quarterly actions. I actually prefer the term targets because I think these are targets. So I always like to show off that you can simply rename a lot of these sections to exactly what you want. The point, what I was starting to explain is your priorities page should really be focused on strategically, what are you doing differently this quarter to specifically progress your annual initiative, those long-term strategic goals. But that might not be the end of what you want to keep track of in the software. We have lots of places to track data, quarterly actions or quarterly targets being one of them. So if there are more goals or metrics that you are working on, then you can add them here to this quarterly target section, and we can really make them come alive in the software using our KPI cards, which I'm happy to demo in a little bit. I see that we do have a hand raised. Who just raised their hand? If you raised your hand and you'd like to come off mute and ask a question, fire away.
I believe the hands were still raised from whenever you ask people to raise hands.
Aha, okay, no worries. So let me just run through adding a quarterly target or a quarterly action here. We click in, we can see, we can, of course, enter in the category that we care about, as well as the projected, this would be the goal that you're working towards. And then you can track the current value along the way. So just like we've been doing, I can just sort of add an example here. And I'm working towards 50, and I'm currently at 35. I will make myself the owner here. Y'all, that is it. It's as easy as that. But if we want to get some additional functionality, we have this little gear icon on the side. I can pull this up, and this should look pretty familiar. It's just like critical numbers, where we have the title, the owner, and we can choose time-based or custom targets as our calculation type. So if I want a custom target quarterly action, no worries. I have that ability as well. I'm gonna keep this as time-based and update this. So quarterly targets or quarterly actions are really useful if you still want to use, like we're a growth a strategic growth management software, but a lot of times, a lot of our in the business numbers, a lot of our routine targets and goals, we can still track them using the software. The software excels at zooming way out. We can also zoom way in and keep track of a lot of the more routine numbers and goals that you and your team are working on, especially if these quarterly targets make sense to track and they're moving the ball forward on your annual initiatives, or they are specifically related to your 1 year goals target. For example, internally at Align, we use Align, surprise, surprise. Our quarterly action section is a mile long. We house a lot of information in here. Some of it is company-wide, some of it is individual. You can dump a lot of data into this quarterly targets or quarterly actions section. But don't worry, even though it looks maybe a little inaccessible, it's kind of swirled away here in the bottom of the 1-page plan, and it's just one list of data points. We can actually organize this beautifully, visualize all this data using our KPI section, KPI card. And I'm happy to demo that in just a little bit. Any questions about this section of the 1-page plan, quarterly actions or quarterly targets? Why you would use them, how you would use them, setting them up, anything like that, fire away. Great. Carly and I are both a little under the weather right now. And so sorry, my voice is a little gravelly. The other thing I want to touch on, oh, first let me hit save on this. You know what, I'm gonna, I always like to add sort of a more realistic title here. So I'm trying to sell 50 units. All right, I'm gonna also talk about metrics. Here is our metrics page, and you'll notice that it's got kind of the same vibe as quarterly action, where this is a long list of different data points that maybe you and your team want to track. So there's a couple of different really useful features about our metrics page and how and why you would use metrics in our software. The first thing that I always mention is, unlike priorities, unlike critical numbers and quarterly actions, metrics don't have a target attached. There's no goal that you're working on for a metric. If I click to add a metric here, other places you'll see, hey, what's the start value? What's the target value? Here, it's just the current value. So for metrics, we're interested, oops, sorry. Just meant to cancel. We're interested in just getting a snapshot in time. What's the number today, right now, of each category that's listed here? So a lot of folks use our metrics page to track data that might not be so strategically important that it's a quarterly action or a critical number or a priority, but it's still a useful number to have an eye on. You still want to track it in some form or fashion. The example I often rely on is like total unique visitors to the website. That might not be something that is a goal. Maybe you're not working on increasing that number this quarter, but it's still something useful to know, have a data point to draw on. So that might be something interesting, something like that to add to your metrics page and just be tracking in the background. The other, there's a couple other extremely useful features on this metric page. Number one is, let's say you have really enjoyed this session and you are psyched to add some quarterly actions and some critical numbers and some priorities in Align. And you're tracking your revenue total all over the place. Or let's say you're tracking your annual revenue per employee. We've got this metric laid out here. You can see that this metric is actually connected to some other KPIs in the software, 4 to be exact. So if I click in here, Oh, it's just for the period. I'm sorry, this is not a good example. What I'm getting at is when you add, let's say, your revenue per employee, you're tracking that as a priority for the quarter. You're also tracking it as a critical number. You're also tracking that as a quarterly action. But we don't want you to have to update each one of those numbers separately in the software. We can actually sync them all through this metrics page. Let me just demo that very quickly. So this increased sales priority. If I edit this priority and I select the value source, I can actually select metric and actually go search for a metric. And I'm just going to choose an example one. I can just choose that annual revenue per employee. That's actually going to be a pretty crazy number. You'll see it will automatically pop in that current value of whatever metric I choose. This utilization rate, it should pop to 83. It does. So let me hit save here. I'm going to, just for my own sanity, I'm going to adjust this so that it makes sense. And maybe I can even cool. Pulling it right in. And let's say on the company dashboard, I'm also going to track it here. Again, I can go find that specific metric on the metrics page. And it's pulling that data right in. So most importantly, what I want to show off here is when the critical number and the priority, they're both synced to that specific utilization rate metric. When I adjust one, let's pop this to 90 and edit, cool. The change is made here. If I head back to my priorities page, you can see that it is automatically adjusted here as well. Because they're synced through the metric, when I adjust one in one spot, every other place that the metric is synced to, it will automatically change. And there we go. It's changed on the metrics page. Oops. Any questions about anything we've covered so far? Why or how to use metric, how to sync different KPIs in the software through our metrics page, anything like that? Groovy. The last thing I always like to point out about metrics is this metrics page is where we can integrate align with external softwares. So just for example, I can pull up this edit drawer, and below the current value, there's an integration field. We have direct integrations with HubSpot and Salesforce, and we can connect with various other software through Zapier, which is a third-party integration connector. So for example, I can select this Salesforce integration and go find a specific Salesforce report. As I've done this, I found a report. I've selected the metric in Salesforce that I want brought in, and it's automatically populated this value. If I hit save, you can see that now there's a little icon here showing that this is a Salesforce enabled, Salesforce integrated metric. And again, this is synced to 4 other spots. It might just be in a previous time period. But if I can go, just like I did with my metric above, I can sync this with some priorities or critical numbers or quarterly actions elsewhere in the software and be pushing out that Salesforce data around the software. So always like to share that information as well. Go ahead and raise your hand or drop it in the chat if you currently utilize an integration with Align. If your Align account is synced with Salesforce or HubSpot or something through Zapier, let us know. Great, great, great. I love it. All right, Carley, would you like to get back in the driver's seat for sharing more about KPI cards?
Of course. So thank you, Tom. That was awesome. Again, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to come off of mute, ask anything, even if it's not related to your KPI cards or your huddles. But I'm going to show you if you are tracking a multitude of numbers and you would like to have them visible to your entire company, if you'd like to have them visible in an easy, succinct way on your dashboard or in your huddles, I'm going to show you how to utilize a KPI card for all of the different types of KPIs we've just gone over. So I'm going to go to my personal dashboard, share my screen. Can everyone see this? Good to go? So
Good to
on
go.
my personal dashboard, let me make sure I'm in the right company. There we go. In my sandbox dashboard, I have my critical numbers for my leadership team. So as a member of my leadership team, the critical numbers that I want to see are for this specific group. I'm not necessarily looking at my company critical numbers because I have that in my company dashboard. So I like to customize my personal dashboard for numbers that are pertaining to just me. So for instance, I have my KPIs and I have things that I want to own that are just in my name. So if I want to have just the KPIs that are under my name, I can create, again, from that edit icon at the top of the page next to the dashboard heading. I can add as many KPI sections as I need to make sure that I'm sectioning out the numbers that I need in a very easy to understand, very easy to navigate way. Since I already have my KPIs here, these are my performance indicators that I am owning. So I'm going to click Save. I'm going to scroll down to my KPIs, and I'm going to click to edit. Again, if this is a brand new card, it will give you a button to say Add KPIs, or you can click this pencil icon in the right corner of the KPI section that will bring up the same edit drawer. So on this Select KPI section on the left-hand side, this is all of the numbers that are being housed in your system currently. And on the right side, your selected KPIs are the KPIs that are going to show up in this card. So I'm going to delete all of these, and I'm going to only have ones that are under my name. You can filter for the KPIs that you're looking for based on type. So I can filter and look for just critical numbers, just priorities, just metrics or quarterly actions. I can also search for the name of a specific KPI. So if I know that I have a test number that I want, I can add those numbers by their name, or I can add them by owner. So if I want to see all the numbers that are in my name, now it's only pulling up things that I am specifically the owner of. So I'm going to add all of these to my KPI card. Now it's showing me every number in the system that I personally am the owner for that I'm responsible for updating. I can click Save, and now I can see the visualization on my dashboard of every number that I'm responsible for. So let's say I only have 5 minutes in the system. If I have a KPI card with all of the numbers, whether they're KPI priorities, quarterly actions, critical numbers, or metrics, I can come in and update them all in one easy to locate place. Simply click on the number. I'm going to update this to 12 and click Enter. I can update my critical numbers or my quarterly actions. So let's say I'm actually at 350. So very easily, just click in, update this. And now the numbers that I'm responsible for, I can make sure are easily updated and always accurate from my dashboard. This is the same functionality on your company dashboard. But the only difference is that if there's anything private, let's say there is a KPI priority that is private to just the sales team, if that KPI is not visible to everyone in the system, it will not be available on your company dashboard. Because remember, this company dashboard is visible to all users in the system. So if I have a sales, let's say my sales team has private critical numbers. They're private to team, only the members of that huddle can see them. They are not going to show up in the opportunities for my KPIs because not everyone has access to them. So I can't put them on a fully open and visible to everyone platform like my company dashboard because not everyone has access to them. This is the exact same functionality, whether it's on your company dashboard, your My Dashboard, or your huddles. So I've got KPIs on my company dashboard. I've got KPIs in my personal dashboard. I'm going to go to my weekly huddle. Let's say my leadership huddle. Right now I have a critical numbers section, but I don't have a KPI section here. And there's some numbers I really need my leadership team to be paying attention to that are some metrics and some quarterly actions. As an administrator in the system, you are able to edit your huddle settings. If you are not an administrator in the system, you're not going to see this huddle settings button. So just make sure if you're trying to edit a huddle that someone gives you administrative access. If you are an administrator, you'll see this nice little huddle settings. Scroll down to, again, your team configuration and scroll to the section order for your team. Here you'll notice that I don't have a KPI section, but if I click this plus icon, it will give me the opportunity to add one. So I'm going to say leadership KPIs. Make sure you click the green plus icon to save that section before you save the entire huddle as a whole. I'm going to move this up above my tagged priorities so that I see my critical numbers and my KPIs all in one easy to locate place. So now you'll see I've got my team critical numbers, and then I have a KPI section. So let's say, in addition to these 4 critical numbers, I also need to be tracking a few other things for this team. I click to add my KPIs, and this is the exact same functionality we just went over on our dashboards. So again, I can select and search different types of numbers, or I can search for a specific KPI by owner or by name. So I'm going to just put on a few different important priorities. I'll put on a few metrics showing that I have some other numbers that are very important for this team to know as well. Now you'll notice visually on your KPI cards, some of these things look a little different. This is a time-based critical number. So I've got that nice circle graph. When I click on it, it also gives me that historical graph as well. If it is a KPI priority, I'm going to see that KPI priority progress bar like you do in your in your priorities page. If it is a metric, I'm going to see again just that raw number because that metric doesn't have targets. It's just showing me what that number is currently right now. And I'm going to click to add one more. I'm going to show you what a quarterly action looks like. That quarterly action looks like a time-based critical number because again, you've got your targets that you've set out for yourself, and it's showing you how much time you have left in the time period to reach that target that you've put together. Any questions on KPIs within your huddles? Again, you aren't limited to just one KPI card. So if I would like to, I can have a KPI card for each individual in this huddle. I could say Carly's KPIs, Katie's KPIs, Miguel's KPIs, tracking each of the numbers for each individual for what they own. So this functionality really gives you the availability to track each individual, each team, all of the numbers that they need, all of the KPIs that are important to them in a very easy to understand and easy to digest way. All right, folks, this is getting close to the end of our time today, so I'm going to open it up for any last remaining questions. If you have a question on your specific account, we're more than happy to either discuss that now. We can always schedule a secondary call with just you, but we're going to open it up and let you guys have any last questions before we wrap it up today.
Hi, it's Dave with Deep Geo, and
Hi,
I
Dave.
don't have any number goals at the moment. They're all milestones. How do I get to track those so that they could show up on a company dashboard? Because
So
there's no numbers involved. It's just dates that we have to hit.
do you have those dates in a priority as tasks? Like, do you have a
Yes.
task-based priority?
Yes.
Great question. So if I have, let's say, I have this mobile app technology selected, I have
Yes.
3 out of 6 tasks completed. So I'm 50% of the way there. Yeah.
Yes.
I can see all of my tasks in my priorities page of what I've accomplished. And I can see the dates that they were due and the dates that are coming up. I'm able to add a task-based priority to my KPI card. Now, it's not going to show me those dates. I'm going to have to go to my priorities page to see that. But if I want to, I can add this mobile app technology selected to my company dashboard on this same KPI card. So if I click edit, I can search for that. And it's going to show me that out of the 6 tasks that are still to be completed, I have done 3, so I'm 50% of the way to being complete on that milestone.
All right. Hopefully I'll remember how to do that. But thank you.
Of course. So you can add any type of KPI to, or any type of priority to a KPI card because each of them have their own measurement. So it may not be that you're measuring to a certain number. You're just tracking the progress that's being made for this priority as a whole. So I have 6 tasks that are to be completed, and I'm looking and seeing how far along I am to completing those tasks. This will give me that progress bar of how far along I am. And if I'd like to, I can go to my priorities page. I can look up that priority, and then I can see all of the things, all of the tasks that are associated with it under this page. Great question. We're, pardon me. We're also recording this. So in, I believe, a day or two, once this finally renders, because it's about an hour long, this will be up on our office hours page. So if you are in your account, you can easily get to our Align Academy through this Help and FAQ page. Go to the Align Academy. In our navigation bar, click on the Training and Support and click on the first option, Join Office Hours. This will have recordings of all of our past office hours. We keep about 6 months on here. So you can sign up for office hours, you can submit a question, and then scroll to the very bottom of the page, and it will show you all of the past office hours that we've hosted. So in a few days, most likely at the beginning of next week, we will have this one fully uploaded. So if you'd like to reference any of the information we talked about today, you'll be able to watch this full video here on this page.
Thank you.
Of course. And as always, if you have specific questions about your account, let's say you've looked through your past office hours, you've gone through our Align Academy, you've seen all of the wonderful tips and tricks, all of the onboarding help that we have available for you, and you still need some extra help, this tour menu button actually says contact us in your account. That's going to give a direct support ticket to your customer success advisor. So when you click in, your account knows who your customer success advisor is. It's going to send us a direct support case. Those support cases are our top priority, and they're answered generally between 6, 12 to 48 hours, depending on your time zone. Any other questions? Any other curiosities? We're always happy to answer anything, even if it wasn't a topic that we covered today. Fantastic. Well, thank all of you so much for joining us today for office hours. I hope that we clarified some wonderful KPI curiosities that you had. I'm going to stay on for about 1 more minute for any additional questions, and then we will let you go about your day. Thank you for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your week. And thank you to Tom and Alexander for helping me co-host today.